Hi, I'm Mike Gitlin. Welcome to another episode of our Capital Ideas podcast, where we get to know the people behind the portfolios. Today, we have David Hoag with us, fixed income portfolio manager based in Los Angeles. Today, we'll learn from David about the advantages of Capital Group's deep research capabilities, the benefits of fixed income in a balanced portfolio, and we'll even hear about the incredible ways he gives back to the community, which may or may not include puppies. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You got to Capital Group, and you've been here for a while now, 35 years, but you were our first ever municipal bond analyst at Capital Group. And you talk about that time as one of your favorite times here. Why?
Yeah, I was recruited to come to Capital from graduate school, and Capital had a very specific need. So they had this sense that they wanted some more research behind this kind of growing area at Capital, which was municipal bonds. And I had some experience in that before business school. And so I said no. They were very persistent.
Was it a strong no? Was it a weak no? What kind of no was it?
Very strong no.
Okay.
Don't bother me.
Yes.
I had never heard of Capital Group at the time. And I was reading through this, it might have been an annual report, but there was this sentence in there about a process by which Capital Group managed money, which involved the analysts being truly involved in the investment process. And I had tried to do that at the previous firm, and they thought that was funny.
You were a credit rater there. You weren't truly involved. You were rating credits.
Exactly. I was kind of an observer of the investment process. And I felt like that was the piece that was missing. And then I read this sentence and I'm like, oh my God, they're doing this. I'm getting on a plane. And that's what lured me in. And yes, I was the first analyst within the municipal bond group. There was a fast follow second analyst. We split the country in half at the Mississippi River, and we just did everything.
It's a big country and a lot of credits.
It's a lot, yeah. But we quickly learned that applying some fundamental research to that area started to make a difference in the portfolios, and that was very gratifying. And then kind of migrated over time to doing, we had many more research analysts. I kind of migrated towards high yield, and that was something I absolutely loved. I felt like I was a private investigator every day and uncovering these little gems and understanding something better than anybody else understood, and then translating that into investment results.
Right.
Was just the most gratifying time of my career.
And what people don't recognize as well is, and you talked about translating into investment results, but some folks don't know that equities and fixed income are very similar at Capital Group and that our analysts manage money. So you stop rating credits, you start investing assets. And the first time you put in your first buy order for your first credit, what was that feeling like? Because then you're managing clients' assets. You have skin in the game. You are really managing folks' money, people who are retiring and need that money in retirement. That's a big moment.
It changes how profound that decision is when you're telling somebody else, hey, that might be good for you, as opposed to this is something that I'm going to put my name behind.
It's different.
It changes the answer. The first thing I recommended was a hospital. We had never owned healthcare bonds in the municipal bond area. And it scared me to death. It really did.
Yeah.
And there was nowhere to hide.
Because you're underwriting that.
Yeah. And so at first it was frightening, and then it really became exhilarating. And it just, again, changed the level and depth of care that one takes before you put your name on that idea.
You have a 35-year track record. That's a very positive one. So what's your specific investment edge? How do you generate above average results over a long period of time?
I think it can be summarized very simply with follow the research. So we have just this unbelievable team of people providing research to the investment process. I think people will readily understand how we do research on companies. And we do world-class, I think, research on companies. But then when you move into bonds, you're also then looking at issuers. So it might be a municipality. It might be mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities. And we have this amazing team of global rates analysts. So we also research economies and central banks. And all of those research inputs are at my fingertip. And generally, I follow the research. Great research, you follow it. I think the little layer I add to things is I'm naturally a contrarian.
Yes, you are. Yep.
Some would say skeptical, but
Either way,
a realist. I'm very much a student. I took one of my favorite classes in graduate school was behavioral finance. And I'm very much a believer that kind of markets get momentum and they tend to over extrapolate either bad news or good news. And knowing when the crowd has gotten very dark in their view and taking the opposite view, and then vice versa, when people are way too optimistic about something, just saying, okay, that's gone too far. It's time to invest on the other side of this.
And would you say your process is different now than, let's say, 20 years ago?
My process has changed. I would say the learnings of an early portfolio manager for me was learning to trust the research. I think as an analyst, I felt like I could be creating all of these inputs that went into portfolio construction with some assistance from research. And then I think over time, I realized, okay, these are the experts.
Right.
Go listen to the experts. Don't invent your new wheel here. Add what you can on top of all that great research, but don't feel like you're creating all of this. And so kind of giving up that sense of almost control and turning it over to the process was a big learning for me, probably 15 years ago.
Got it. Mm-hmm. The thing at Capital Group is that we ask people to do lots of jobs, and you are no exception. So one of your roles is also a member of our solutions committee. And the solutions group oversees, I think, around $600 billion of client assets. So talk to us about something that everyone sees in the press all the time, 60-40. It's alive, it's dead, it's great, it's not. What's your view on 60-40?
Yeah, I think it's very much alive. So when we talk about a process, that's not a word I love because that implies some mechanical. And a 60-40 process, I think, is too rigid. I think it's a mix that works well over time, but you also have to know that certain times, effectively, correlations break down. And having a sense of when those correlations might be shifting is very important. And they tend to occur, from my findings, is when you have bouts of inflation and a central bank is in motion, either aggressively raising or lowering short-term interest rates. And so I think you can use it as kind of the assumption, but then kind of be nimble enough to know when that mix may not be optimal for a short period of time.
It's interesting. I was looking at our flagship 60-40 strategy, and I was looking at 1, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 since inception numbers. The lowest return over any of those periods on an annualized basis after fees was over 8%. So something works if you have that kind of return profile over such long periods. And I think what you all do as a group is put the pieces of the puzzle together the right way. It's not stagnant, as you say. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah, I agree. And it not only provides those results, but it's a pattern of results. And that's something we're very focused on, is not just what the absolute results are, but kind of the way in which you generate those types of returns.
So talk about some lessons you learned early in your career that maybe didn't work out so great, or sort of reminded you that this is a humbling profession.
Yeah, I have a series of really dumb quotes. And so one of them is, I spend my career between being humiliated and being humbled by markets.
Yeah.
It is one of the most difficult parts of this job is, we hire a lot of very bright, capable people, and you don't always get things right. And for me, what matters is going back, understanding, okay, the thesis didn't work out the way you thought it was going to work,
Right.
good or bad. I think that requires you to go back and think, okay, some unexpected good things happen. Was that skill? Was that luck? Unexpected bad things happened. Was it skill? Was it luck? When you get lucky, you can't pat yourself on the back too hard. When you're unlucky, you go back and you do a deep assessment. And what's really nice about working at Capital is, as a portfolio manager, when an analyst brings me an idea and we put it in the portfolios together, it's our idea. It's a partnership. It's not that analyst's idea. So when it goes bad, I say, what did you do? We will walk in and say, okay, this didn't go the way we thought it was going to go.
Right.
Let's discuss.
We is important. I'm gonna shift a little bit here to you, and you have interviewed thousands of people, like literally thousands. I was one of the people you interviewed. I made it through. Thank you. But you interviewed thousands of people. What advice do you give to candidates who want to join either our industry or Capital Group? You choose. But what advice do you give to candidates who are looking to get in?
I love this industry. I think it is absolutely fascinating. It's dynamic. There's no boring days. I've chatted with some younger folks thinking about entering this business, and I think it can feel intimidating from the outside. They may think it's a very, this is all Wolf of Wall Street or some kind of that type of environment. And it couldn't be anything further from that here. And so there are different ways of accessing this industry. And there's just so many facets to it. So there is, what I do, managing assets. But even surrounding me, we have trading. We have folks who understand risk deeply, portfolio construction, and then there's distribution. Like, there's so many different facets to this industry. And so, yeah, I think it's a fascinating kind of dynamic industry.
So don't be intimidated.
Don't be intimidated.
What makes Capital Group so special in your mind?
So what gets me in that car every morning and makes me excited to come to work every day, and part of it is the industry. Like, there's something new happening every day. Most importantly, it's the people I work with. And yes, I have interviewed thousands of people, and most of them work somewhere alongside me in our fixed income group. And I think in essence, it's really working with really bright people, and you can intellectually engage with, who are all driving towards a shared purpose. And so what is truly remarkable about working at Capital is I'm not working against anybody internally. We're all moving in a positive direction together. We confront each other all the time because they're difficult investment puzzles we're trying to understand, but we do this in a very polite manner. And so you're working with really bright people who are, we're all trying to help each other.
Yeah.
And I've worked in a different environment where I spend 30 to 40% of my time kind of defending myself from people internally coming at me. I just don't waste my energy doing that here.
Yeah, working with, not competing against. I love that part. I'm going to shift to the office treasure hunt, and I have a couple pictures I'm going to put up. The folks who do not watch this and only listen are going to be very unhappy they are not able to see what's on the screen, because these are the cutest puppies ever. So explain, why are you holding these two puppies and how this fits into your overall philanthropy?
So that's Woody on the left and Polly on the right here.
And what kind of dogs are these?
These are mixed dogs. So they're mostly lab with some golden. And we have been part of a nonprofit called Canine Companions. And so what they do is they do selectively breed these dogs for being very bright and very calm, effectively, very teachable. And so we volunteer to raise these puppies until they're about 1.5 years old. And we have to do a lot of training, a lot of behavioral training, like teach them to not chase a squirrel, which isn't easy. And so we just raise these puppies, and then at about a year and a half, they go into full-time training. And then ultimately, they will get, I think after 6 months of training, they will get placed with a family that has high medical needs. So it could be a vet. There's a woman in our community who lost both arms and legs. Woody went to a family with a child who's permanently disabled. And so they will do various levels of work for these families, but also be companion animals. And so I'm a very big dog fan. I have been since I was tiny on the farm. And to see these people and hear their stories of how these animals have transformed their lives is absolutely profound.
Yeah, I've been to one of your events before, and I think it's just a great cause, and it does transform lives. In the world of hidden talents, I don't think everyone will know that you can actually smell like dogs, and not smell your own person, sorry, but the ability to smell. So let's clarify, but would you share that with us?
Yeah, probably shouldn't have shared that with
You
you.
shared it, and when you share something with me, it's coming out on the podcast.
Yeah. So I was born an extrasensory person, which means kind of all of my senses are heightened. And some things you can be tested for. So early on, I was told I have like ridiculously good vision. My hearing was very sensitive. But like things like touch and smell, like there aren't tests for that. And when I was in third grade, I put my head down on the desk in the middle of class. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning. The teacher said, "David, what's wrong? Do you need to go to the nurse's station?" And I just looked around the class and I said, "We're having mashed potato and gravy for lunch." And they all look at me like, "What's wrong?"
We are.
And I said, "You can't smell this?" And everyone just looked at me like, "Maybe you need to go to the nurse's station." So it's one of those things where you don't know that you're different. And yes, I do have a very sensitive sense of smell, which my kids have inherited. Which comes in super handy for wine tasting, but not so much in
That's about it. Yeah.
That's it. If you're going to pick a superpower out there, don't pick this one.
I will ask you to pick a mentor, getting back to Capital Group or life, whoever you'd like to pick, but share a mentor with us.
Yeah, there are a lot, both that I'm currently working with and some retired. I'll pick one out. His name is David Barkley. He was my first research director, and that's the person who kind of helps manages the analysts. I was young. I was a bit impetuous. I wanted to change the world at Capital. And he said yes, but just slow down and think about it, give it time, let the process work. And that just taught me volumes about, how to think about things a little more in depth and take the time to let people process along the way to accept change. It's something I still do. I'm kind of someone who likes to push for change, but I've learned to be patient and realize that it's a process and not just something you do immediately.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned David. I had the privilege of working with him after you all hired me. I had the privilege for a few years of overlapping with him before he retired, and he was one of those folks who was very calm, just very balanced and calm, and it was a privilege to work with him for that period. We're going to finish up. You have a lot of interests outside of work, but funny enough, it's still investing. So can you share more about some of those?
Yeah. You would think that's the last thing I'd want to do when I come home.
One would think.
Yeah.
But
what I have found gratifying is, people over the years have come to me who I've maybe known for some time, and they're smart people. They have a good idea and they're honest. I've helped a number of them get started with building a dream with a new business. And it could be in the wine business, in the beer business. There's a couple of apparel companies where I've really just kind of talked through the idea, helped them get started. And then I'm there for counsel if needed.
An
But
advisor.
yeah, I don't spend time ongoing with most of this, but it's fun. It's just really gratifying to see some of these ideas really grow up and become legitimate businesses. So that's the part of it that I've really enjoyed, is just watching these individuals blossom. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the word gratifying. That tells me not to forget what you're obsessively grateful for. So we have the Be Obsessively Grateful mug. And since you're only in West LA, we will ask you to take this with you. We won't send it to you like we do with our colleagues in London or New York or San Francisco or Singapore. But David, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful most recently for two amazing children who are well onto their journey of being fully functioning adults. And that was something very deliberate and intentional in my life and something I think I'm very grateful to Capital about, is having the balance in my life to have a career, do other things with canine companions, and also put in the time necessary with my children. So I'm eternally grateful for that.
Well, you and Cindy should both be proud because you have two great kids, or young adults, as we say. So congratulations on raising two fine individuals. I'm grateful for you. You did interview me. You helped convince me to come to Capital Group nearly 12 years ago. So I appreciate that forever. And I appreciate working alongside of you. So we will end there. Thank you, David. And thank you all for joining us.